Ethan Hale had learned long ago that the safest way to survive among aliens was to be invisible. He walked through the massive transit ring of Orion Station with his head slightly down, his pace steady, his expression calm. The station was one of the largest mixed-species hubs in known space. Beings of every shape, size, and color moved through the wide halls. Some floated, some walked on many legs, others glided on fields of energy. Humans were still rare here, and that was exactly how Ethan liked it. He was not a soldier anymore. He was not a hero. He was just a human contractor delivering medical supplies to frontier colonies that no one else cared about. Quiet work, honest work. The kind that kept him alive. Around him, alien voices blended into a constant hum. Translation implants turned them into understandable words, but Ethan had learned to ignore most of it. Politics, trade arguments, status games. None of it mattered to him. He just needed to reach Dock 12, hand over his cargo, and leave. That was when he felt someone grab his arm. The grip was small, light, shaking. Ethan froze. Before he could pull away, a soft but desperate voice spoke in clear, accented standard. "Sir, may I pretend to be your wife?" The words hit him harder than any weapon ever had. The noise around them died instantly. Ethan slowly looked down. The alien woman clinging to his arm was shorter than him, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly under the station lights. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with panic barely held back by control. Thin markings glowed along her neck and wrists, symbols Ethan didn't recognize but had seen enough to know they meant status. High status, high danger. He could feel her trembling through his sleeve. Behind her, several figures in dark ceremonial armor were pushing through the crowd. Their movements were calm, confident, and predatory. Enforcers. Ethan recognized the type immediately. Not police, not soldiers, something worse, property collectors. Every instinct in Ethan screamed at him to step away. Humans survived by knowing when not to get involved. But when he looked into her eyes, he didn't see manipulation or trickery. He saw terror. The crowd watched in stunned silence. In many alien cultures, public claims were binding. Even false ones created legal complications. Everyone knew that. The enforcers stopped a few steps away. One of them spoke, its voice cold and sharp. "Female Lureth of the Valari bloodline, you are required to return with us." Lureth tightened her grip on Ethan's arm. "She is with me," Ethan heard himself say. The words came out before his mind could stop them. Every eye turned toward him. The enforcer tilted its head slowly. "Clarify your claim, human," Ethan swallowed. His heart hammered in his chest, but his voice stayed steady. He didn't know how, but it did. "She's my wife." The word echoed through the hall. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers spread instantly. A human claiming marriage to a Valari noble female was unthinkable. Valari marriages were political tools, contracts signed before birth. The enforcer's eyes narrowed. Human marriage customs are unclear. "They're simple," Ethan said. "We choose each other." Lureth looked up at him, shock flickering across her face. For a moment, even her fear paused. The enforcer hesitated. That alone told Ethan he had stepped into something much bigger than he understood. "Station authority will verify this claim," the enforcer said finally. "Until then, the female remains under observation." "Under my protection," Ethan replied. The words felt heavy, dangerous. The enforcer studied him for a long moment, then stepped back. "This is not finished, human." They turned and disappeared into the crowd. The noise slowly returned, but nothing felt normal anymore. Lureth's grip loosened. Her knees nearly gave out. Ethan caught her before she fell. "Easy," he said quietly. "I've got you." She stared at him as if he were something unreal. You agreed," she whispered. "Why?" Ethan exhaled slowly. "Because they were going to take you." "That is not your problem," she said, voice trembling. "Humans do not interfere with Valari law." "Someone had to," he replied. Station security arrived minutes later. Polite, firm, very curious. Ethan and Lureth were escorted to a protected residence wing reserved for diplomatic disputes. As the doors sealed behind them, Ethan finally allowed himself to sit down. His hands were shaking now. "What exactly did I just do?" he asked. Lureth stood across from him, her posture formal despite exhaustion. Slowly, carefully, she bowed. "My name is Lureth of House Valari," she said, "and you may have just saved my life." Ethan rubbed his face. "I pretended to be your husband. That's not exactly saving." "In my culture," she said softly, "a public marital claim blocks forced bonding, even a false one." "For how long?" "Long enough to involve the tribunal." Ethan groaned quietly. She looked at him with guilt. "I did not plan to involve you. I had no other choice." "I get that," he said, "but why me?" She hesitated. "Because you are human." "That's not comforting." She almost smiled, almost. "Humans are unknown variables," she explained. "Our enforcers fear uncertainty. You were alone, unguarded, and yet you did not run." Ethan leaned back against the wall. "You realize they're going to check if we're actually married?" "Yes." "And we're not?" "No, which means this falls apart." "Yes." Silence stretched between them. Then she spoke again, her voice very quiet. "If the claim is proven false, I will be taken. I will be bound to a noble who wants my bloodline, not me. I will never leave his estate. I will never speak freely again." Ethan looked at her, really looked. She was young by human standards, intelligent, afraid. Trapped by laws older than his entire species' space history. He had seen cages before, physical ones. This was worse. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Time," she said. "Only time. Time to run, time to hide, time to disappear." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Humans had a long history of being underestimated, of being told their choices didn't matter, of being owned, ruled, decided for. He opened his eyes. "Then we buy time," he said. Lureth stared at him. "You would risk yourself for a lie, for a person," he corrected. Station notifications chimed softly in the room. An official message appeared on the wall display. "Notice: a formal inquiry into the validity of a human Valari marital claim has been scheduled. Both parties are placed under protective observation." Lureth's shoulders tensed. Ethan stood. "All right," he said. "If we're doing this, we do it right." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," he said calmly, "we stop pretending we're pretending." She blinked. "I do not understand." "It means," Ethan continued, "that as far as anyone asks, we chose each other, we met, we agreed, no fear, no force." "That is dangerous," she said. "So is the truth." She studied him, searching for deception. She found none. "Humans are strange," she murmured. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "We've been told." Outside the protected wing, messages were already spreading across Orion Station. A human had publicly claimed a Valari noble FEM a LE Chinese letter, a species known for refusing all outside interference. Some laughed, some worried. Some watched closely, and far away, powerful beings began to pay attention to a quiet human who had done something very dangerous. He had chosen to stand. The protected residence wing was quiet, but it did not feel safe. Ethan felt it the moment he woke up. The room lights were soft and warm, adjusted automatically for human comfort, but his instincts refused to relax. He had slept on a narrow couch near the door, fully dressed, boots still on. Old habits from years in dangerous places. He opened his eyes slowly and listened. Nothing, no alarms, no voices, just the low hum of the station's systems. Across the room, Lureth sat near the wide viewport, watching the stars drift past. Her posture was straight, controlled, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders even from a distance. She had not slept. "You should rest," Ethan said quietly. She turned toward him, surprised. "I did not mean to wake you." "You didn't," he replied, sitting up. "I don't sleep deep." She hesitated, then asked, "Is that because of war?" Ethan paused. "Yes," he said simply. She nodded as if that explained many things. Outside the protected wing, Orion Station continued its endless motion. Inside, time felt frozen. Waiting was often worse than action. They had been there for 12 hours. 12 hours of silence, while the station's legal systems prepared to examine a claim that had never been made before in recorded history. A human publicly declaring marriage to a Valari noble female. Ethan stood and stretched. His joints complained quietly. "So," he said, trying to sound casual, "what happens next?" Lureth folded her hands together. "The Inquiry Council will question us separately at first. They will look for inconsistencies. And then, she said softly, they will decide whether to forward the case to the Galactic Tribunal." Ethan let out a low breath. "That sounds bad." "It is," she agreed. "But it is also rare. That gives us a chance." A chime echoed through the room. The door slid open smoothly, revealing 2 station officials and a security unit. The officials were tall, gray-skinned beings with calm expressions and data screens floating near their hands. "Ethan Hale," one of them said. "Lureth of House Valari. Please follow us." The corridors outside were clean and bright, but the looks they received were anything but neutral. Word had spread fast. Ethan felt eyes on him everywhere, curious, confused, some hostile. Humans were not supposed to do things like this. They were led into separate chambers. Before the doors closed, Lureth looked at Ethan. Fear flashed across her face, quickly buried under control. He gave her a small nod. It was not much, but it was real. Ethan's chamber was simple. A table, a chair, a recording sphere floating quietly in the corner. One official sat across from him. "State your full name and species," the official said. "Ethan Hale, human, Earth-born. You have claimed a marital bond with Lureth of House Valari. Is this correct?" "Yes." "When did this bond occur?" Ethan chose his words carefully. "Recently, privately." The official's eyes flickered. "Valari bonding rituals are complex and well documented. Human rituals are inconsistent." Ethan almost smiled. "That's true. Explain." "Human marriage is based on consent," Ethan said. 2 people agree to stand together. There isn't one single ritual. What matters is choice. And you chose her. "Yes," the official studied him. "You understand that false claims carry serious consequences." "I do." "Then why risk it?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He thought of the fear in Lureth's eyes. The way she had shaken when the enforcers approached. The calm mask she wore over something breaking inside. "Because I could," he said finally, "and because no one else would." The official was silent for a long moment. "You are not obligated by law to involve yourself in Valari internal matters." "I know. And yet you did." "Yes." The questions continued for hours. They asked about his past, his work, his knowledge of Valari culture. They searched for holes in his story, but Ethan stayed steady. He did not exaggerate. He did not lie more than necessary. He told the same truth again and again. He chose her. When the door finally opened again, he felt drained. Lureth was waiting outside, escorted by another official. Her expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes met his immediately. They were led back to the residence wing together. The moment the door sealed, Lureth's control slipped. She sat down heavily, her breathing uneven. "They asked me why I trusted you," she said quietly. "What did you say?" "That you did not look at me as property," she replied. "Only as a person." Ethan nodded. "Good answer." She gave a weak smile. Hours passed. Station announcements grew louder outside. Debates erupted in public forums. Some species supported Lureth's right to choose. Others condemned human interference. Valari representatives demanded immediate resolution. Ethan spent the time studying. He accessed public legal records, reading about Valari bonding laws, asylum cases, and human diplomatic precedents. His mind shifted into a familiar mode: problem-solving, strategy. Humans were not the strongest species. That had never been their advantage. They survived by thinking. At one point, Lureth watched him silently as he scrolled through data. "You are preparing for battle," she said. "Not a physical one," Ethan replied. "Those are easier." She tilted her head. "You do not fear them." "I do," he said. "I just don't let it stop me." Another chime echoed. A message appeared on the wall display. "Notice, due to the unprecedented nature of the claim, the Inquiry Council has escalated the case. A provisional ruling will be presented within one cycle." Lureth's hands tightened. "If the ruling is negative," she said, "they will transfer me immediately." Ethan stood and walked to the viewport. Stars drifted slowly past, distant and uncaring. "You ever wonder," he said quietly, "why humans leave their planet?" She looked at him. "Curiosity." "That's part of it," he said, "but mostly it's because staying still never saved us." He turned back to her. "If they rule against us," he continued, "we'll still have options." "You cannot fight Valari authority," she said. "No," he agreed, "but I can slow them down. I can ask questions, file objections, demand reviews." She stared at him. "You would do all that for someone you barely know?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I know enough," he said. The provisional ruling came sooner than expected. They were escorted to a public chamber overlooking a massive hall. Representatives of dozens of species were present, physically or through projections. Valari delegates stood together, cold and silent. The presiding official spoke. "The Inquiry Council finds that, while the human claim lacks traditional Valari validation, it cannot be immediately dismissed due to conflicting interspecies legal frameworks." Murmurs spread through the hall. "Therefore," the official continued, "the case will be referred to the Galactic Tribunal for final judgment." Lureth's breath caught. The Valari delegates reacted instantly. "This is unacceptable," one of them said sharply. "The female is Valari property." Ethan stepped forward before he could stop himself. "She's not property," he said. Silence fell again. The presiding official raised a hand. "Human representative, you will restrain yourself." "With respect," Ethan replied, "this whole situation exists because no one ever did." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The official studied him, then nodded slowly. "The tribunal will convene within 3 cycles. Until then, both parties remain under station protection." The gavel struck. The chamber erupted into noise. Back in the residence wing, Lureth finally broke. She sank to the floor, her control gone, silent tears tracing glowing lines down her face. Ethan knelt beside her, unsure at first, then gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're still free," he said. "For now," she whispered. "For now is enough," he replied. She looked up at him. "If this fails, they will punish you. I know." "Why are humans like this?" she asked softly. "You act when logic says you should not." Ethan smiled faintly. "Logic didn't get us this far alone." She laughed weakly through her tears. In the days that followed, pressure increased. Valari agents attempted to intimidate Ethan through legal threats. Other species offered quiet support. Human diplomats finally took notice, sending observers who were both impressed and alarmed. Ethan became something he never wanted to be, visible. Lureth began speaking more openly. She asked questions. She learned about Earth, about human history, about wars fought over the right to choose. "You broke many of your own chains," she said one day. "Not all of them," Ethan replied, "but enough to matter." As the tribunal date approached, the galaxy watched, and somewhere deep within the vast systems of interstellar law, something old began to crack, not because of force, but because one human had refused to let fear decide for him. The day of the tribunal arrived without ceremony. There were no alarms, no dramatic announcements. Orion Station simply shifted its internal schedules, rerouted traffic, and opened one of its oldest halls. A place built not for comfort but for judgment. Ethan stood at the entrance, hands relaxed at his sides, face calm. Inside, his chest felt tight, but he had learned long ago that fear did not disappear when ignored. It just waited. You carried it with you and moved anyway. Beside him, Lureth wore formal Valari attire. The fabric shimmered softly, marking her bloodline and status, but there was something different about her now. Her posture was straighter. Her eyes no longer avoided the room ahead. She was afraid, but she was no longer silent. The doors opened. The tribunal chamber was vast, a circular space with layered platforms rising like steps toward the ceiling. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats. Some were physically present. Others appeared as towering projections of light and shape. At the center hovered the tribunal core, a cluster of ancient artificial minds bound by law and precedent. Their voices, when they spoke, would be neutral, cold, final. Ethan and Lureth stepped forward together. Valeri delegates occupied a prominent platform. Their expressions were sharp, controlled, confident. To them, the outcome was already decided. A human had no place here. The tribunal core activated. This session concerns a disputed marital claim between a human citizen, Ethan Hale, and Lureth of House Valari, the voice echoed, layered and precise. The matter challenges established Valari bonding law and interspecies legal boundaries. Silence followed. Proceed with statements. The Valari representative spoke first. Lureth is Valari, he said firmly. Her bloodline belongs to our governance. Human interference threatens cultural stability. The claim is invalid and must be dismissed. Simple, direct, absolute. The tribunal turned to Ethan. Human representative, the voice said, you may speak. Ethan stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not posture. I'm not here to challenge Valari culture, he said. I'm here to challenge one part of it. Murmurs spread. You say her bloodline belongs to you, Ethan continued, but she doesn't. The Valari delegate reacted sharply. She is bound by law. So were a lot of humans once, Ethan replied calmly. The tribunal core shifted slightly. Explain. Ethan took a slow breath. Human history is full of laws that said people could be owned, he said. We had rules that said some lives mattered less. That choice wasn't allowed. That freedom was dangerous. He looked around the chamber. Those laws were legal, he said. They were traditional. And they were wrong. The Valari delegate scoffed. Your species' failures do not define ours. No, Ethan agreed, but our lessons might help. He turned slightly, gesturing toward Lureth. She didn't ask me to fight a war, he said. She asked me to stand next to her. That's all. The tribunal paused. Lureth of House Valari, the voice said, you may speak. The Valari delegate immediately objected. This is irregular. Valari females. Objection denied, the tribunal replied. Lureth's breath caught. For a moment she stood frozen. Every rule she had grown up with pressed against her mind. Be silent, obey, endure. Then she remembered the moment in the transit hall, the fear, the choice. She stepped forward. I was raised to believe my life was a resource, she said softly. That my future was already decided. Her voice trembled, but she did not stop. I was told that sacrifice was honor, she continued, but no one ever asked if I agreed. She lifted her chin. I choose, she said. I choose to live freely. I choose to stand here. I choose him. The chamber erupted. Valari delegates shouted protests. Other species reacted with shock, some with interest, some with approval. The tribunal core pulsed with light. Order, it commanded. Silence fell again. The voice spoke, slower now. This tribunal recognizes the conflict between cultural sovereignty and individual autonomy, it said. We must determine whether consent overrides tradition. The Valari delegate spoke again, his voice tight. If this ruling favors the human, it will destabilize Valari society. Ethan responded before the tribunal could. So did ours, he said, and we survived. The tribunal considered, time stretched. Ethan felt the weight of history pressing down, not just Lureth's future, not just his own, something larger. Finally, the tribunal spoke. Ruling, it said, no sapient individual may be claimed as property when mutual consent exists elsewhere. The words echoed through the hall. Effective immediately, the voice continued. The marital claim is recognized under interspecies asylum law. Lureth of House Valari is granted autonomous status. For a moment, no one moved. Then the reality hit. Lureth was free. The Valari delegates stood in stunned silence. Their authority, absolute for generations, had just been pierced. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Lureth swayed slightly. Ethan reached out, steadying her. This time she did not hesitate. She held on. The tribunal core dimmed. "This session is concluded." The chamber erupted into noise. News spread across the station in minutes, across systems in hours. Humans, long dismissed as fragile and chaotic, had changed interstellar law without firing a single shot. Not through power, through choice. In the days that followed, everything changed. Valeri culture did not collapse. It strained, debated, argued, but cracks let light in. Other species quietly reviewed their own traditions. Human diplomats arrived, stunned by what one civilian had done. They offered protection, status, rewards. Ethan declined most of it. He stood at the viewport once more, stars sliding past. Lureth joined him. "What happens now?" she asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "Now you get to decide." She was quiet for a long moment. "Humans are dangerous," she said finally. "Yeah," he replied. "We get that a lot." She looked at him, eyes steady. "I asked to pretend," she said, "but I do not wish to any more." Ethan met her gaze. "No pretending," he agreed. "Only choice." She smiled. Real this time. Outside, the galaxy adjusted, slowly, reluctantly, but it adjusted. Because one human had refused to walk away, and one alien woman had found her voice. And together, they reminded the stars that freedom, once chosen, is hard to silence.